Welcome to the AllPittPod, where we cover all things Pittsburgh professional sports. Thank you for joining me on August 25th of 2023. Oh, man, we got a lot to talk about today. So, first off, we're just going to go ahead and say there's no Penguins news at all. Nothing happening in the NHL. But we got a good bit of Pirates news to cover first off before we get to the real meat of the pod. We had two preseason games between the last podcast and now. We had last Saturday where we played the Bills, and we had last night where we played the Falcons. But let's go ahead and run through some Pirates news. On August 21st, we placed Henry Davis on the 10-day injured list. He had a strained right hand. Don't know exactly what that means, but hopefully, he's back and ready to go in the next, few days. And then we have our 11 to win one over the Cardinals, where Joshua Palacios led us for 3 home runs, 5 RBIs, and we won 11 to 1. Since then, we had another win the next time we played the Cardinals, 6 to 3, and then we took a loss 6 to 4. And then we played the Cubs, where we lost 5-4, and then we played the Cubs again tonight at 6:05 p.m. August 25th. We were very close to sweeping the Cardinals, but they had to go ahead and take that last game 6 to 4 over us. Right now we're on a streak of 2 losses, so hopefully we can come back and take the second game versus the Cubs. As of right now, we are second to last in the central standings. We are just 1 win and 1 loss above St. Louis for last place. And then Cincinnati, Chicago, and Milwaukee in that order from bottom to top. So Milwaukee being the number 1 in our division. So that's fun. That's not very fun. But like I prefaced at the beginning of the podcast, nothing has happened for the Penguins or really the NHL in general. It'll probably be like that for a really long time. Because if I just come over to here real quick to ESPN, I think the last thing that they posted was like 19 days ago for the Penguins, right? So nothing at all going on there. So yeah, let's move on to some football talk. How about we do that, huh? That's what I'm mainly here for. So we will go ahead and just start off by prefacing that we ended the preseason 3-0. And we did really well. It wasn't like any close games or anything like that. Like, we genuinely swept our preseason games. But let's go ahead and talk about the first game last Saturday, where we played the Bills. Both teams started their starters for a good bit. I can't remember exactly how long, but long enough for Kenny Pickett to score 2 touchdowns very quickly. I believe it was all within like the first. Here, look, let me look at the Connor Hayward, all within the first quarter, within like the first 5-10 minutes of the quarter of the game in general. And then they said, all right, you guys are good to go. But I want to preface this. Jaylen Warren, my guy, had 1 carry. Well, this was for whenever the starters were out or whatever. He had 1 carry, and he took it to the house on 1 carry. I can't remember exactly how many yards it was. It was something ridiculous. And I talked about this literally last week on the podcast. If you were here and you listened and paid attention, I love Najee Harris. Najee Harris scored a touchdown for us last night whenever we had our starters out there. Jaylen Warren is fun to watch. So it was a run to the left side. He bounced around. Also, O-line, amazing protection on that run play. Let's just cover that real quick. Dude had the biggest gap to run through. It's not like he struggled and broke free. No, he took one little hitch step to the left and just gone. Okay, but yeah, covered that last week. I'm a huge Jaylen Warren fan, and it looks like he's only improved. So that's exciting. And then with our starters out, we had a touchdown pass to our tight end, Pat Freiermuth. It was a 25-yard pass from Kenny Pickett, a crisp pass, if I do say so myself. It was super good. It was an amazing play. Great catch by Freiermuth. It was in between, like, I think he was sandwiched between, like, two other defenders or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. I can't remember, but it was a nice play. And then we ended up winning that game 15-27. That's great. We love to see that, right? So then we'll go ahead and go over to this game last night where we played Atlanta. And this was even more fun. You want to know why? Because we blew them out. Final score was 24-0 at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I'll go ahead and run through Kenny Pickett's stuff real quick. He had 4 attempts. He went 4 for 4, 86 yards, 21-yard average, just 118 passer rating. It was great. And then the main big play that he had was like, and like the one play George Pickens had was I think they scored a touchdown on it. Here, hold on, let me see. Nah, he was 1 yard short, I believe, but it was 1 reception, 35 yards. Killer. Same thing with Deontay Johnson. 1 reception, 33 yards. Connor Hayward got involved a little bit in the air. He had 2 receptions for 27 yards. His longest was 16 yards as a reception. Allen Robinson didn't really get anything. He had 1 reception, 2 yards. That was literally it. Calvin Austin had 1 for 8. I'm excited for Calvin Austin. I think the NFL and fans of the NFL are actually starting to notice how good Calvin Austin can be, because he had that really good play against the Bills where he just took off and he just outran everybody and then had a deep ball to him. He's fast, and it's exactly what I was talking about last week. Literally, like it seems like last week everything that I said on that podcast ended up happening, or the NFL is actually starting to talk about it more, whatever it may be, the Steelers, whatever. I literally said last week I didn't want to compare him to Tyreek Hill because Tyreek Hill is Tyreek Hill, but I can't remember who posted it, but someone posted saying, is Calvin Austin the third Cheetah 2.0? Come on, man. Whatever. I'm excited. I'm glad that people are finally starting to recognize some of these other guys that haven't had a lot of light. That deep ball from Kenny Pickett to George Pickens, though, last night was beautiful. It was amazing. Kenny Pickett almost played a perfect preseason. I think he only threw like 2 incompletions out of all of the preseason. It was ridiculous. But I also talked last week about how I thought that the Bills probably had a good chance of beating us. And then I saw how we absolutely dismantled the Bills. And the thing is, right, is it would be completely different if it was their second strings and third strings, whatever, like preseason is. No, we both started our starters. They had their starting defense, they had their starting offense, vice versa for the Steelers, right? And we picked them apart. Like I said, within the first 5-10 minutes, we were up 14-0. And it didn't slow down there, right? It's not like after, our starters went out or whatever, like we just kept up the momentum. We punched them in their mouth. They got cracked. And it was great. So let's go ahead and get away from like the scores and the stats and everything. I have a few notes taken down. So I don't know if anyone here listens to it, but the Pat McAfee show. I have been listening to it a lot this week. Whenever I'm at work, whatever I'm doing. And it, obviously, if you don't know, Pat McAfee is a retired punter for the Indianapolis Colts. And it seems like all they've been talking about, which it's no hate on them or whatever. It's just, this is big news, right? All they can talk about is the JT news, Jonathan Taylor, sorry. The reason I'm bringing this up is because I want to preface how well our organization is managed. I feel like we didn't really have any drama at all, really. I mean, don't get me wrong, we've had some players in the past, Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, those people that have kind of brought in a little bit of drama, right? But our newer guys, so like the past few years after Ben Roethlisberger, or like the last year-ish of Ben Roethlisberger, whatever, has been basically drama free, and we had some huge contracts come up, and the Steelers actually did what they were supposed to do, and that is pay their guys. Right now, I won't get too deep into the Jonathan Taylor situation. It's kind of a messy one right now, but I'm just comparing this situation because it's all I've been listening to on their show to our situation and our organization, right? And like we had TJ Watt, right? He's obviously top 1, top 2 defensive players in the freaking world, right? And there was no drama. He didn't have to sit out. There was none of that. Our organization got to work to pay this man. And I'm just so glad that we don't have any huge dramas like that, because huge drama obviously causes problems, right? Especially whenever you have high caliber players that deserve to be paid. And if we had drama like that, that's going to mess with our culture. That's going to mess with our locker room. That's going to put a lot of eyes on us as well. We don't want eyes on us. The only time we want eyes on us is whenever you're cheering for us and whenever you're posting clips of the Steelers doing really well. I'm just so glad that there's nothing like that for us, and I'm hoping that it continues to be that way. I feel like we have a good group of guys, on the field and off the field, right? Between our players and our coaches and our actual owners and organization. I feel like most of them are actually trying to do what is right, and it's more human rather than more I'm above you, I'm the owner, whatever, you're just a player, you're just a product for me. So moving on from that situation though, another thing that I wanted to talk about is is Broderick Jones. He's our left tackle from Georgia. We traded up and picked him in the first round. And I haven't seen any updates or anything about this. I don't know who's going to be starting, especially now after the preseason at left tackle for us, if it'll be him or whatever. But I'm a little nervous for Broderick Jones. Not like I'm just nervous about Broderick Jones, not for him, about him, right? Because I fully expected there to be a highlight reel like there was from whenever he was at Georgia, where he's running side by side with our running backs and plowing people down. He's great pass cover. I think I can't remember the exact stat, but he let 0 sacks, no QB hits, any of that. I think for however long. I think his entire college career at Georgia or something like that. It was insane. But I have not heard anything really about Broderick Jones, I feel like, at all this offseason. I feel like we haven't seen anything from him in training camp, any videos being released, any people talking big about Broderick Jones. And I'm not saying he's not being competitive or anything like that at all, and that he's, not producing. It's just I expected our first round left tackle to come in and kind of be the guy, and maybe that's just me being selfish or whatever, and he might still be that guy. I haven't seen anything on if he's starting or not, but I just expected to see more of him during the off season, during training camp and the preseason games. But our other rookies though have been balling out. That's a perfect segue into Area 51, and if you don't know who I'm talking about, you'll know eventually. You'll start to figure it out. His name is Nick Herbig. Oh my goodness. We've prefaced this in the past, and I guarantee if you've listened this far into the podcast, you probably already know. Nick Herbig is one of our O-lineman's little brother that we drafted from Wisconsin in like the 5th round, 6th round, something like that. I can't fully remember, but he was a later round draft pick. He has been electric this preseason. He has been kicking butts, man. He's been one of my favorite players to watch all preseason. You know what I mean? I haven't been this excited about some player that we drafted, especially so late, in a very long time. But oh my goodness, his stats are insane. He's been making sacks. He's been making big plays. And I had some criticism on Nick Herbig. I can't remember if that was the first episode or last week's episode of the podcast, but whenever we drafted him, I was a little skeptical. And it wasn't entirely his fault or his playmaking abilities. I didn't know a lot about Nick Herbig. Number one, I don't think a lot of people did. He went 5th round, 6th round. I didn't know a lot about him, number one, and number two, he seemed like a small guy for me coming off of the edge for the position he's playing. He just seemed a little smaller to me, and oh my goodness, am I glad I was wrong. He has been so good, and I am so excited to have him on our roster. And he's gonna be. I think he's gonna be a dude. I think he's gonna be a guy for us. I really think so. And I think he's gonna. I think right now for the PFF, he's like top one or something like that, and like the best like 5th round draft picks of the season or whatever. And he's probably one of the best steals from the draft, if I'm being completely honest with you. It's insane. I'm glad he came out. I'm glad he's showed out. I'm glad he's busting his butt. Because it's noticeable, Nick Herbig. It's noticeable, and we are all very excited to have Area 51 on our team. And I'm excited to see what he can produce during the real regular season. Talking more about our linebackers, though, Quan Alexander. This came out like the day after it happened, but that first game against who'd we play first? I'm spacing. Who did we play? Can't remember who we played. But against that first game, you all know the hit I'm talking about. I'm pretty sure he got fined like $46,000 off of that. Here, let me look that up real quick. Okay, so it looks like he was actually fined $43,709 from that hit. You have got to be absolutely joking. That is ridiculous. Every single person that watched that game saw that tackle, and it was a perfect tackle. It was a hard tackle because, hello, welcome, it's the NFL. It was a hard tackle, but it was a good tackle. It's not like he led with his head or anything. He literally ran his body into him, grabbed, and fell forward. That was it. I cannot preface this enough. I love Quan Alexander. He just fits perfectly. I said this last week. He was born to be here, I think. And he's still kind of, he's like 28, 29, so we still got some years out of him. And with how he played during the preseason, I'm excited. Our defense is going to be great. I mean, if we want to go back to our two hot takes from last week, right? George Pickens, top 5 wide receiver, defense, number 1. And I genuinely think that's a possibility. And I know preseason doesn't fully matter, but whenever our starters were out there playing against other teams' starters, including the Bills, who were one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl last year, and we picked them apart, and our quarterback only throws 2 incompletions the entire 3-game preseason? Come on now. That's exciting. That's big news. Kenny Pickett is looking different out there. Kenny Pickett is looking very much improved. He looks like he actually takes charge of our offense, and our offense looks like they just gelled together and meshed together. Our defense, I'm going to keep it real, I'm not fully surprised that they're doing as well as they are, right? The offense is the real big question for us. And I genuinely think that they are getting close to figuring it out. I mean, if you look at it, right, last night against the Falcons, we had a 92-yard drive that ended with a Najee Harris rushing touchdown, right? If we just look back at the last couple of years, just last year, whatever it may be, 92-yard drives did not happen a lot for the Steelers. Their offense was just not it. And it's unfortunate, right? But I feel like it is definitely a trial by fire. And we have struggled on offense for a very long time, even during Big Ben's, career, during the end of it or whatever it may be, right? So, especially last season, oh my goodness, our offense was terrible, but it's not entirely on the guys. I mean, we had our starting QB out for a while with the concussions, and we had to use Trubisky in there. And man, a lot of people want to hate on Trubisky. But I mean, obviously I don't see him being a starter in this league anymore, but I do like him as our backup. I do like him if Kenny Pickett does have to miss a game or two, or he has to miss a couple quarters or whatever. I see Trubisky being a guy that can genuinely hold it down for us until KP can get back out there, right? And another conversation, a big conversation, probably the main conversation of the Steelers right now, is the quarterback situation. And I know it's only preseason, and it's only his sophomore season, but man, you can't help but be excited about Kenny Pickett, right? I mean, like, look at him. He basically had a perfect preseason from the time that he was playing, and he played. I mean, they played more than what I thought they would, to be honest with you. But I mean, I prefaced that in the first episode, the first podcast, is that I think this is what they needed, especially a lot of these second year guys, rookie guys, whatever, right? They needed to go out there and they needed to play the preseason. They needed to knock that rust off, right? Because that's just part of the game. You know, this is only your second season in the NFL, and you had a pretty long preseason, as most people do. And training camp just isn't enough for a sophomore year guy. Now, whenever he starts to become more of a veteran guy, and hopefully he does, and hopefully he stays a Steeler for a very long time, and he does big things for us, you know, then you don't really got to play a lot in the preseason. And speaking of that, it reminds me of one of my favorite videos of anything out of the Steelers, and it's it's amazing. It's whenever Big Ben was still playing, and they were in training camp or whatever, and I think Mason Rudolph was like his second, and then there was some third guy, I don't even remember. It's been a while now. And they're doing, like inside the pocket drills where the quarterbacks are like holding the ball and they're bouncing around, like they're throwing pads and stuff, and you're supposed to like dodge the pads or whatever. Big Ben is not worried about losing his job, okay? So they're throwing him, and obviously Big Ben's not the most mobile guy, so he just starts smacking him down with his arms. Like, he doesn't, like, you're supposed to go around them, you're supposed to dodge them, whatever. He just starts smacking them, whatever. That's besides the point. I thought I'd share that. It was hilarious. You could probably look it up and watch it if you haven't seen it. But I hope Kenny Pickett does stay for a long time. I hope he does big things for us. And man, I'm trying not to be that guy and get super excited about the season, but like watching this preseason, you can't help but be excited. And I think that we are genuinely going to carry the momentum from this week and into week one, right? And we're probably going to need it to be a pretty smooth transition between week 3 of the preseason and week 1, because we open our season up against San Francisco on September 10th at 12 p.m. Whatever. Crappy time for a game, but whatever. San Francisco's good, obviously. They went pretty deep last year, and even with their situation, with Brock Purdy being Mr. Irrelevant and coming in, and they still played well. They obviously have Deebo Samuel. They have, maybe the Bosa brother if they figure out his crap. I think he's still sitting out or whatever. It's just a solid overall team, and I genuinely think that it's going to be a tough game unless we come out there and we punch them in the mouth like we did with the Bills starting offense and defense, whatever it may be. I mean, like, genuinely the reason I'm excited because of preseason is because, one, we completely blew out Atlanta. They scored 0 points. We 24-0. Okay, that's exciting whenever you can do that, anyways, right? And on top of that, we beat the crap out of Buffalo, and that's not something we can say. If you look back at last year's game against Buffalo, oh my, that was bad. Okay, and the reason it's even more exciting is because it's not like again, like I prefaced in the beginning, it's not like we had starters out there playing against second and third string guys. No, we had starters playing starters, and our starters came out and showed out and balled out. And I think if we had starters in that entire game and they had starters in that entire game, like let's say it was a regular season game, we win. Like, we came out there with so much momentum, so much fire. It was ridiculous. I didn't see any team stopping that. You know what I mean? Especially on defense, right? Like, they weren't stopping our offense at that point. We cruised, right? And it's cool to see. But either way, going back to what I was originally saying, is that San Francisco is a very good team, and it's going to be a very good test week 1. But I'm hoping that we come out there against San Francisco and do what we did against Buffalo, and that is just start fire hot. Start just super on fire to where you can't put us out. And we just keep rolling and rolling and rolling. It's exciting. We have our bye week, week 6 of the season. So after just going down the games, we play San Francisco at home. We start with our home opener. And then we play Cleveland at home. And then we're away against Las Vegas and Houston. And then we play Baltimore at home. Now, depending on what the Baltimore season looks like, that might be a rough game before the bye week. But we have that bye week if that is a rough time to recuperate, and go and punch Los Angeles, the Rams, in the mouth. So to be honest with you, I think we have a chance of going 6-0 before the bye week. Or 5-0, sorry. I think we have a good chance of going 5-0 before the bye week. And then we can go I think Los Angeles we could take, Jacksonville we can take. Tennessee is kind of iffy. That's our first Thursday night game. Just because no one fully knows what to expect out of Tennessee. Tennessee's kind of a confusing team. Dude, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go ahead and give some season guesses here. I'm looking at the schedule right now, and I'm gonna be completely honest with you. There's not a lot of teams on here that I think we lose to. Cincinnati is going to be a hard-fought game. I mean, that's pretty given. Any team from the AFC North is going to be tough. So Cleveland, Cincinnati, Baltimore, those games are going to be tough, and those might be games that we take L's on, even though we need to win those games, for the postseason, hopefully. But man, like New England, whatever, Jacksonville. I mean, Jacksonville is going to be tough too. But I mean, I don't think Jacksonville can recreate what they did last year. I'm going to keep it real. That's just a personal thing. It has nothing to do against, Jacksonville's fan base, the team, anything like that. I think we're a better team than Jacksonville. And I think Kenny Pickett is going to be better than Trevor Lawrence, but whatever, that's besides the point. So I want to say we can go 11-7, 12-6 to finish out the season, make a run in the postseason. Part of me is telling me we could maybe do better than that. I mean, I'm really not trying to be that guy who just thinks like, oh, it's my team. We played well in the preseason. We're going to sweep every team. No, that's not what's happening. It's just I'm looking at our schedule, and a lot of these teams, I don't see them beating the starting teams that played this preseason. I don't see it happening. Like, if we play exactly how we played at the beginning of all three of these preseason games, we're good. We're really good. And I genuinely believe that. So it's exciting. I want to say we're going to win 11 games, 12 games, something like that. We'll come back to this and we'll see, at the end of the season if I was right. But yeah, I'm obviously super excited for everything that we're doing. We looked really good. I mean, no one expects a blowout. I mean, 24-0 is ridiculous, but I mean, whatever. I'm here for it. We're riding, right? Pittsburgh Steelers, let's ride. It's exciting. Some key players that I think are going to be great, and we're not going to name the obvious ones like TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, all of them. I think Nick Herbig, big Nick Herbig fan. We don't know a whole lot about Joey Porter, but I think he's going to be pretty good as well after a couple seasons with Patrick Peterson, hopefully. I can't remember how many years we signed Patrick Peterson to. I think it's a year-by-year contract, but we talked about it last week too, is just Joey Porter doesn't have to come in and immediately be that guy. And I think if Joey Porter gets a year or two to play some snaps and sit behind Patrick Peterson, I think he can be great, really. Just learning a lot from him. But yeah, I think Nick Herbig is going to be a game wrecker, and hopefully, at the end of at the end of this season, I'm hoping that he can go out there and beef up a little bit, because I mean, if he can get stronger and faster, Nick Herbig is a scary dude. He's already scary, and he's definitely not the biggest dude out there on the field, but he's killing it. I'm super excited for Nick Herbig. Super excited for Jaylen Warren. At this point, I've basically talked about the same few dudes, but I mean, it's just part of the facts. I think, especially with Jaylen Warren's preseason that he had, he looks really good, and he's super fun. Super excited for Jaylen Warren. I'm a little worried about Deontay Johnson, to be honest with you. If he can, hopefully he can pick himself up or whatever. But I mean, George Pickens, obviously, we're super excited about George Pickens. Calvin Austin, super excited about Calvin Austin. We need that speedy guy. Super excited. But if you did listen all the way to the end of this podcast, that means you are probably a big Pittsburgh guy. And that means you're also hopefully a fan of me and my podcast. So I realized, and I'll probably preface this at the end of every single podcast until maybe I figure something else out. But I want to expand, obviously, in the long run, but I want to expand just the podcast and I want to build a team, even though we're only 3 episodes in. But I realize that I'm obviously not the best guy to be talking about hockey and or baseball. I'm more of a football guy. Everyone already knows this if you've been listening. But in my brain, what I can see this podcast being is we have the football guy, me. We have the hockey guy who knows everything about hockey, big Penguins guy, and the baseball guy knows everything about baseball, big Pirates guy. So, if you did listen to the end of this and you're listening to this right now, if you think you can be the big hockey guy or big baseball guy, please hit me up. You can DM me on Instagram or comment on YouTube, whatever you're listening, and I can try and get a hold of you. I think it'd be really cool. I want to build this into something that's really big. And I think starting the building process would be having 2 other people join me and try and build it with me and be the other sports that are involved in Pittsburgh. But yeah, if you're listening to this and you're interested, like I said, just DM me on Instagram, comment on YouTube, whatever it may be, and we'll try and figure something out to see if you might be a right fit for the AllPittPod. But I think that's going to go ahead and end this week's. We'll still have a podcast next week. I'll figure out some topics to talk about for the week in between preseason and regular season. So there will be a podcast next week, even though there isn't a game. Super excited. I will catch you guys next week, next Friday. If you're listening on Spotify, give me a 5-star rating. If you're listening on YouTube, drop a like, drop a comment. Check out AllPittPod on Instagram. And thank you for tuning in. I will see y'all next week.